Well, this is going to be a good one. Students furious at woke courses being taught at university. This comes from news.com.au. Students at one leading university are pushing back against new rules forcing them to complete woke courses or risk being banned from graduating. Oh, that doesn't sound authoritarian at all. Monash University has begun forcing students to complete learning modules on Indigenous history and sexual consent in order for them to pass subjects. More on this right after this very quick sponsor. You're more likely to have your data compromised than ever. In 2020 alone, 500,000 user accounts belonging to a popular video conferencing app were stolen and sold on the deep web. Usernames and passwords were sold for as low as a penny. Relying on big tech companies to protect you is no longer an option. That's why I'm such a big advocate of Virtual Shield. Virtual Shield is a no-log VPN that helps protect your private data from hackers. Protecting yourself takes seconds and works on all your devices. Try Virtual Shield risk-free for 30 days and receive 50% off for life by going to virtualshield.com/bear or using the link below. Well, thank you very much, Virtual Shield. I appreciate you, brother. Students at Victorian universities are pushing back against new rules, forcing them to complete woke modules or risk being banned from graduating. Monash University has become the latest institution to penalise its students for not completing certain modules and credentials. Students at the university are being blocked from accessing learning materials or from submitting assignments if they do not complete study modules on Indigenous Australian voices and respectful relationships. Those who refuse or fail to complete the tasks are locked out of their online learning hub, barring them from lecture recordings and weekly materials until modules on consent, drinking and Indigenous history are submitted. Listen, cunt, we're a Australian. You don't need to teach us about drinking or any other of these stupid things. Art student at Monash, Josh Feldman, said while some content included in the modules is valuable, the university should think twice if it believes students are taking them seriously. And here's a picture of his apparent learning online account saying your Moodle, whatever the Moodle is, access has been suspended until you complete your compulsory modules. Dear face, your module access has been suspended as you haven't completed the compulsory modules. Indigenous Australian Voices. God, what does that mean? Monash University has begun barring students from enrolling in classes and graduating if they do not finish mandatory modules on Indigenous history and sexual consent. Monash University Peninsula Campus, that's the one that was right down the road from me, where I used to live, in Frankston. You'd think they'd have modules on not doing crack, avoiding heroin, shit like that, because that's Frankston. As important as it is to learn about Indigenous Australians, many students view compulsory university modules not as serious learning opportunities, but rather as chores to get over with, he said. I hope the university isn't simply patting itself on the back with this Indigenous Voices module and thinking that it's done its duty in educating the student body about the local Indigenous community. Another frustrated student called the move laughable after paying full fees for 2 years despite not accessing any facilities because of the coronavirus. Now we're being forced to undergo compulsory re-education to access materials for class, he said. Yeah, and that's it. It's re-education. You think the way we do, otherwise you can right off. You don't belong at this university. But what they don't consider is what if you're a racist? Or even worse, a grapist? And you're like, I totally disagree with these modules. I don't want to do these courses because I disagree with them. Well, ladies and gentlemen, you're going to fail your course. The module even asked a question about whether we were now more likely to perform an acknowledgement of country, which prevented you from completion unless you answered in the affirmative. The fifth-year law student said it was completely unnecessary to deprive fee-paying students on their education unless they learn about the institution's woke political perspectives. I mean, imagine that. These are f***ing adults. Like, they're young adults, they're 18, 19-year-olds, whatever, they're just out of high school. But they're adults nonetheless. So imagine if I went down to the docks at say, Southport, right? And I signed up for fishing lessons with the local fisherman instructor. And he's like, oh, okay, yeah, you're a 38-year-old man, but you're not allowed to learn fishing unless I'm sure you're not gonna, grape your wife. I'd be like, get f***ed, I'm a f***ing adult. Fuck you, stupid fisherman. I'll just go to the fish and chip shop. And here's an example of this, right? I'm sorry, it's a little bit cut off on the left. But it says, why are welcomes to country and acknowledgements of country important? Conducting a welcome to country and or acknowledgement of country brings awareness to First Nation peoples being custodians of the land, now known as Australia. I think this is meant to say ongoing connection to the place of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Australians and shows respect for the traditional owners. Listen, here's a fact. When we got here, we weren't tolerant. If they f***ed with us, we f***ing shot them. And I'm not saying that's good, that's really bad. I don't like people being killed and shit like that. But now all of a sudden we've got to acknowledge country and do welcome to country things. And then it asks, are you now likely to perform an acknowledgement of country? Yes, but only if it's not awkward. No, probably not, with a big red X next to it. Take a moment to reflect on where your aversions come from. If you're not sure what to say, you can either use the script provided or find one. There's many available. If not comfortable speaking publicly or have a similar hesitance, that's okay too. However, if you're not inclined due to something it's cut off, pay respect to traditional owners, we really hope that this module helps you reflect on your preconceptions. You're a university, teach them fucking science, teach them law, teach them whatever the you're teaching. I mean, let's get this straight. I'm not a racist, I'm not a grapist, but you shouldn't be brainwashing people to think the way that you think, because that's like communist USSR. Alright, I'm just saying it, I'm putting it out there. Oh my god, this is He reported that most classes are now commenced with an acknowledgement of country. It feels entirely performative and insincere. Yeah, that's because it is. Particularly if you're hearing it for the 4th or 5th time in a day, he said. Imagine that, going to university and every class, you've got to basically say this prayer to the Aboriginal owners of the land. I mean, how about this? Just don't be racist, don't grape people, and we'll all get along. It's quite laughable when a Vice-Chancellor with an annual pay packet of over $1 million is telling poor university students that they can't be educated unless they learn about those who've been hard done by. However, a Monash University spokesman said student associations had backed the Indigenous Australian Voices module as a mandatory task for students. Okay, here's another instruction, what not to do. And I'm sorry, it's cut off again on the left. Use abbreviations. Shortening Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander to ATSI is disrespectful. It sends the message that writing the full name is inconvenient. Well, it kind of is. Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander. Use stereotypical terms. Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people are continuously working to dismantle existing stereotypes about their cultures and histories. What do you mean f***ing histories? There's only one history, there's no histories. We don't live in a multiverse, I don't think. Examples of stereotypical terms include but are not limited to disadvantaged, Aborigines, natives, lost language or lost culture. How the is Aborigines a stereotypical term? They are Aborigines. Nothing wrong with being an Aborigine. But if I say, hey, you're an Aborigine, I'm being disrespectful. What the is this? Use assimilationist terms. During times of assimilation policies in Australia, much disrespectful terminology came to use. These terms are old, outdated and extremely offensive. Examples of these terms include half-blood, half-caste and quarter-caste. Yeah, okay, be offended at that if you want. But I've got a funny story, right? So my big brother Trav, he went to trade school to become an electrician when he was like 17. And he was filling out the form and the form said, are you Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander? And he thought it was multiple choice. And he thought, wow, I'm not an Aboriginal. I must be a Torres Strait Islander. Fucking dumb Anyway, what a load of bullshit. We got to get this woke shit out of universities. We've got to get this woke shit out of everywhere. I mean, imagine having to acknowledge the traditional landowners 5 times a f***ing day. I think we're over this shit now. Just get over it. Alright, well that does that. I've been Bearing. Thank you very much for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Ta-ta, goodbye. Recession, session.